Well, let's get started. Good evening and welcome to our regularly scheduled Zoning Advisory Commission meeting this evening, April 5th, 2023. I'm glad you all found a parking spot out there. I call this meeting to order. Jason, if you would please take roll.
Christ,
Here.
Kemp,
Here.
Mulligan,
Here.
Norton, Russell,
Here.
Semp, Zucchero.
Here.
Great, thank you. Jason, can you please confirm we're in compliance with the Iowa Open Meetings Law?
Yes, we are.
Very good. All right, commissioners, in front of you are our meeting minutes from our previous meeting on March 1st. I know you've all had a chance to review. At this point, I would entertain any modifications or a motion for approval.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. Jason?
Kemp,
Abstain.
thank you. Norton,
Aye.
Russell,
Aye.
Semp,
Aye.
Zucchero,
Abstain.
Christ,
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so those meeting minutes are approved as submitted. Thank you, Jason. All right, so tonight, we have a lot of items on our agenda. So we have 4 action items. We have 6 public hearings. So what I'll be doing, to those of you that are here tonight, if you're here to speak on an item, I'll ask you to come up when it's your turn. We'll ask you to state your name, state your address, discuss with the commission what it is that you're after. Specifically for the action items, once you're done with that, you can go ahead and have a seat unless there's some questions from the commission. The public hearing, we'll handle it a little bit differently, and I'll explain that when we get there. So let's see, our first item here, simple subdivision at 1299 Locust Street and 1257 Locust Street. I know somebody's here. All right, very good. Come on up.
My name is Mackenzie Blau, and my home address is 1548 Pago Court here in Dubuque. But I am here tonight in my capacity as attorney for the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Dubuque, the applicant. I am also joined tonight by Tom Sullivan, the executive director of the Boys and Girls Club, Craig Geiser of Origin Design, and Randy Sigmund, the president of the Boys and Girls Club. The Boys and Girls Club has been located at 1299 Locust Street in Dubuque for many years. Just south of 1299 Locust is 1257 Locust Street, which is a 2-family conversion brick building with 2 units. The Boys and Girls Club also owns 1257 Locust. Historically, the club has used 1257 as administrative offices. Now all of the administrative offices have been moved to 1299 Locust Street. There is a buyer that's under contract who is very committed to purchasing 1257 Locust Street from the Boys and Girls Club. 1299 Locust and 1257 Locust Street are connected by an enclosed breezeway. When the breezeway was constructed, it was built to fit in with the architectural design of the neighborhood. Recently, and with the agreement of the buyer, an interior barrier has been built to provide complete separation between the buildings. A plat of survey for Lot 1 and Lot 2 of the Boys and Girls Club Place, which is a simple subdivision plat, has been proposed to reconfigure the property line between 1299 Locust and 1257 Locust. This plat has been included in the application materials. Also, given the unique breezeway between the buildings, which again no longer provides access to the other building, but physically connects the buildings, the Boys and Girls Club is seeking a waiver to allow a 0-foot side yard setback. Also attached to the packet of materials with our application is a proposed utility ingress and egress maintenance easement that has been agreed to by the buyers, or by the buyer and the Boys and Girls Club as well. The shaded area represents the easement area that follows the reconfigured property line. We are seeking approval of the simple subdivision plat as well as a waiver to allow a 0-foot side yard setback. We are happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Commissioners, any questions for applicant? I do have one question. Have the utility companies, has there been any conversations with them regarding the easement that you're proposing here? Sounds like the owners are in alignment.
I can state my name too. My name is Craig Geiser. I'm with Origin Design, 137 North Main. So to address your question about utility coordination, yes, we've been working with the city and the utility providers and trying to place the line in the best place we can, trying to obstruct the fewest utilities and so forth, all right? So with that, we are showing easements on the plat that kind of give those rights to those utility providers and to the owners, those rights to maintain those.
Okay, so the utility companies, they're aware and in alignment with the easements as you've shown them?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, Sheena, is this you?
Yes.
We'll take your staff report.
Thank you. Sheena Moon, Associate Planner. So as the applicant articulated, what they're seeking to do here is reconfigure the property lines at 1257 Locust in order to sell off that property. I'm just going to walk you through a few exhibits here. So in the first image I have here, this is just meant to show the existing configurations of the two lots. So the lot to the north being 1299 and the lot in red there being 1257. And then if we scroll down, you'll see that there's just a slight modification to where that property line will run between the two buildings, as well as to the rear side. They are kind of jogging that property line to allow for a parking space to remain with 1299 and to also capture the stairs that are on that back side of the building, which you can see a little bit more clearly here. And so this lot line adjustment is technically considered a simple subdivision, but because the proposed lot line will result in a 0-foot setback for both properties, that is specifically because of that existing breezeway. And as the applicant articulated, they will be, or maybe have already completed the interior barrier there, but nonetheless, there's still a 0-foot setback. And so that is why it is requiring the Zoning Advisory Commission and City Council review. And with that, I guess I'm happy to answer any other questions that you may have.
Thank you, Sheena.
I'm sorry, Chair Mulligan. I would also like to add that with respect to the utility discussion, the city water and engineering departments have looked at this, as well as the construction and inspection services department, to verify that what they're proposing would be compliant with all their codes and regulations and requirements with respect to the utility locations. And those departments have also signed off on this plat.
Great. Thank you, Sheena. Commissioners, any questions for staff? Okay. Well, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I move we recommend approval of the subdivision, subject to the waiver of the bulk regulations to allow for a 0-foot side yard setback for both properties.
I'll second.
Okay. We have a motion. We have a second. Jason, if you would take roll.
Norton,
Aye.
Russell,
Aye.
Senf,
Aye.
Christ, Kemp, Zucchero,
Aye.
and Mulligan.
Aye. Okay, so that motion does pass, and on April 17th, this will go before the City Council. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I need to accuse myself from the next several items on the agenda. I'll be back for the second public hearing.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Norton. Okay, we will move on to item number 2 on our agenda here, a minor subdivision at 11429 Edville Road. Is our applicant here this evening? State your name and your address.
I'm Gary Valentine. Address is 11429 Ed Battle Lane, Dubuque. My main goal with this was to create a lot for my son to build a house on so he could help on the farm. We started on this a couple years ago. That would be Lot 1, I believe. It's 1.9 acres approximately. Lot 3 is the remainder of that larger lot that was cut off from by the Southwest Arterial. So Beasing suggested that we make that a lot in itself so that it could be added to that larger parcel. I own everything around that on the south side of the arterial too. But like I said, the main goal was to create a lot for my son to be able to build a house on.
Okay, and I'm sorry, it was Gary? Is that
Gary.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Gary. I had a hard time hearing you. Any questions for Gary this evening on his request? Okay, Gary, you can have a seat.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Sheena, will you be giving staff report? Okay.
Well, thank you. Sheena Moon, Associate Planner. So as the applicant articulated, they're seeking to reconfigure their existing property in order to create a new outlot, or a new lot rather, for a residential development. The image here on the screen shows the existing lot. It also, in the red, articulates the portions that are in the city and then the portions that are located within the county, just for information purposes. The proposed plat here shows what they are proposing. So they are proposing more than 2 parcels. This does qualify as a minor subdivision per our Unified Development Code, and therefore requires review by the Zoning Advisory Commission and City Council. The Lot 1 there, which is in the pink hatched area, that is the lot they are creating for residential development. Lot 2 will be all the areas outlined in green. And then Lot 3 to the south will be the Lot 3, the new Lot 3. You will notice that Lot 3 does have access along the Southwest Arterial here, however, it does not have direct access. And what the applicant is working on providing is an easement from the Walsler Lane here across a property that the property owner also owns to this Lot 3 in order to be able to provide future access. With that, I will mention too that engineering and the water department have also reviewed this plat and are supportive of the plat with the proposed easement. And with that, we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
I'm sorry, Sheena, back to Lot 3 there on the
It's the blue lot on the southern
the
side here.
south side there?
Yep, and so it has frontage here along the arterial. However, there's not a direct road coming in to provide access. And access to and from the arterial there is unlikely, just based on the design of the arterial. So again, just to make sure that that lot is not a lot. We don't like to approve lots that don't have access. So that is something we're always looking at when we're reviewing plats and bringing them forward for staff review and or for commission and city council review. So that is the reason for that request, a requirement for the access easement across that property to the west.
And you said Mr. Valentine also owns the property that's providing the easement?
Correct, that is correct, that's my understanding.
Okay. Commissioners, any other questions or clarifications that you're after? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the final plat of Valentine Place number 4 as submitted.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion and we have a second. Jason, if you would take roll, please.
Russell,
Aye.
Senth, Zucchero, Christ,
Aye.
Kemp,
Aye.
Mulligan.
Aye. Thank you, Jason. That motion does pass. Mr. Valentine, there you are. Thank you for submitting. That'll go before the council on April 17th. Thank you. All right. what we will do now is move on to item number 3, site plan waiver for 2175 Rosedale Avenue. I will note before we proceed forward that we will need 4 affirmative votes. This will not go before council, but we will require 4 affirmative votes. So that'll go for item number 3 and item number 4. So with that, item number 3 on the list, again, 2175 Rosedale. Is our applicant here this evening?
Hello, I am Tom Kelzer, address 9565 Royalwood Drive, Piasta. And so what I'm here for, the property was previously part of the St. Anthony's campus, so it's the actual school building. And as part of that purchase, we received a portion of the parking lot. And so to get enough parking for the apartments that we're looking to put into the property, we were looking to get a waiver from the 7-foot landscape buffer between the 2 parking lots, and then a landscape island at the end. We'd be looking to, stripe it, hatch it out to have the requirement for the landscape island just be part of the pavement. As part of that property, St. Anthony's is not looking to do any improvements to their portion of the parking lot. And we will be designating the different parking out between the 2 with signage. And so basically what I'm asking for is to not do the 7-foot buffer and not landscape the end islands.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions for our applicant this evening? I do have a question. If we were to do the buffers and the islands, how would that inhibit you?
So it wouldn't give us a drive lane to drive both ways down. So we have access off of Rosedale as kind of a one-way in, and then also access off the alley. And so if we lose 7 feet, we wouldn't be able to have, 2 rows of driveway to
Okay.
drive 2 vehicles down through there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, Sheena, Travis, if you would.
Yep. Assistant Planner Travis Strobeljan. So as the applicant has stated, they are requesting the waiver for the landscape islands and the buffer, 7-foot buffer in this case. This is a project that's expanding the parking lot. It's a non-conforming parking lot, and the expansion greater than 25% requires the parking lot to be brought up to current standards. So the actual landscape requirements would require a mixture of grasses, shrubs, ornamental trees in those areas, and they're proposing painted on the blacktop there. I don't believe I have much else to add to the project, so if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Okay. Travis, thank you. Any questions for staff? Travis, I generally have an issue with sidestepping the landscaping buffers. However, I understand there's certainly a traffic flow issue on the parking lot. Frankly, I don't see a solution to it either. I'm assuming from a staff perspective, you've analyzed this to see if that could be a potential, and that is not.
Yeah, so there is some space where it could slide to the east some, but they would still require a buffer waiver if you move the whole thing over. They may lose that second line of driving. One possible maybe negotiation might be that he replace landscaping in other portions of the property. So it's just a suggestion.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm concerned about the islands not being landscaped myself at the ends of the new row parking. Seems like if there's room for paint, there should be room for bushes.
you're talking specifically to the areas highlighted in red?
Yes. Yes.
Could we request some clarification from the, please, from the applicant? Thank you.
Well, I think part of it with being a tight space there, it allows much easier in the wintertime for snow removal. And then on the farther end with the larger spot there, it allows us a place to put snow as well, which is, I guess the concern would be it would just kill any landscaping or bushes, or we'd, get them chopped off if we were to cut it out. Plus, it would just be a matter of cutting out the concrete there. And, if we planted anything in there, I think it would be, cumbersome in the winter time. But yeah, I mean, we would be willing to add more bushes and things on the buffer closer to the building, in an effort to kind of compensate for it.
I agree with the snow removal, and the odds of probably damaging your shrubs there is an issue. I understand that. Okay, I just wanted clarification on that. Thank you. Yeah, I think that's just a bummer of a spot. So the landscaping there is probably going to be a hindrance for the owner down. I think we all like to maintain the landscaping where we can, but during the winter months, that's going to create quite the challenge for the owner. So having gone through that discussion, I'd entertain a motion or further conversation from the commissioners.
I'll make a motion to approve the property listed at 2175 Rosedale Avenue to waive the 7-foot landscape buffer and landscape islands at the end of the aisles over those 11 spaces.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and we have a second. Jason, if you would.
Semp,
Aye.
Zucchero,
Aye.
Christ,
Aye.
Kemp,
Aye.
Russell,
No.
Mulligan.
Aye. Let's see, so that motion does pass. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Wally. Where'd you go? There you are. Thank you for coming this evening. Appreciate it. All right, we are going to move on to item number 4 here, another site plan waiver at 2777 University Avenue. Is our applicant here this evening? Thanks, Wally.
My name is Jeff Morton, architect, 163 Bradley Street. I'm here representing Dr. Joan McCleary and Colonial Terrace Animal Hospital, or Fat Cat LLC, regarding the property at 277 University Avenue. We're requesting a landscape buffer waiver along existing parking areas. One parking area along the south side of the property we're extending to support a building addition of about 1,500 square feet. The property is zoned Z3, or C3, I'm sorry, not Z. I don't think there is a Z. Anyway, C3, it's surrounded by other C3 properties. On the map you can see, on that plan, you can see we've got a 10-foot requirement along the existing east parking lot. That parking lot was constructed in 2005 as part of an addition project for Colonial Terrace. The parking lot to the south is existing, was constructed in 1972 as part of the original building construction. We're extending that parking lot to the west to gain additional parking for the proposed addition, and that helps us meet our parking requirement. Again, all of the properties around our C3, we've got a car wash property, which is all paving for the most part to the south of our parking area, And then Universal Electric is to the north, also non-conforming in terms of their parking requirements, pretty much the same across the street, across University Avenue. So that's our simple request. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions for our applicant?
So you're tearing down an existing building?
The buildings, there was a pet grooming building right in that location right there that has been torn down. Also, a storage garage in that location right there was also torn down, both to accommodate parking and the proposed addition.
Good.
I'll ask real quick. I just want to clarify. So when I look on the map, I see all the items in red and then the landscape island in green. Are you requesting waiver from all of them? Are you okay with the landscape island?
We almost meet the requirement at the north side of the site, north side of that existing east parking area. That's very close. So I guess we officially should have a waiver on that property, most certainly between the parking lot on the east and the University Avenue right away, and then all along the south edge of the parking lot.
So if I may just further clarify, so the green, the required green that you're seeing here, the required landscape islands, they are not requesting a waiver from those. They're just requesting from the buffer yards.
Correct. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Okay. I have a little cheat sheet here. Jason, I understand this is yours? No?
Jason Duba, Assistant Planner. So as the applicant described, revisions to this property have begun with the demolition of 2 buildings. Planned is an addition to the existing building that involves the expansion of 25% or more of the building area, at which point the site design requirements are activated, and they are complying with the landscape island requirements, but are seeking waivers for the landscape buffers, largely to maintain the existing parking configuration and to meet the requirements for parking spaces. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for staff or follow-up? I do think it's worth noting how certainly the neighboring property to the north has 0 green space. To the south, a little bit more. And to, I think it was Ryan's question, in which Jeff and Sheena had confirmed, so the areas notated in green are going to be landscaped. If you look at is there a better area of that? Or is that
I'm sorry, what was that?
better?
That's that.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
That one's in the, it's on the back.
There's another one further in.
That, kind of that.
Yeah.
I think it was-
Well, I guess I'm simply trying to highlight, we do have a buffer there on the southeast corner, clearly shown as well. Yeah, you don't have to search through it. There you go. Well, that's on the, oh yeah, that's the south side.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I just wanted to highlight that, and actually, I didn't realize we have some on University there as well, just not the 7 foot. Okay. If there's no other questions for staff, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to waive the site design standards as submitted for the property at 2777 University.
A second?
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. Jason, if you would.
Zucchero,
Aye.
Christ,
Aye.
Kemp,
Aye.
Russell.
Aye. Okay, so the motion does pass. We were required to have 4 affirmative votes, so thank you for your submission. may have left already. So we're going to transition to our public hearings. I am going to be recusing myself from item number 1. However, what I will state is quickly just the expectations as we work through the public hearings there. So we'll invite you to come up, state your name, state your address. Very similar to the action items, and what we'll do after any questions we might have for you as the applicant, we'll also open up the floor for public hearing. And then we'll fall back to a very similar situation as the action item. So with that, I will turn it over.
Pass that sheet down to me.
Yes, sure can.
Thank you.
Vice Chair, thank you.
All right, the first public hearing is a proposed rezoning on the Northwest Arterial. The property owner is James Gantz, proposing to rezone from ag to planned unit residential. Mr. Gantz, would you like to say a few words about your proposal?
Jim Gantz, 12241 Forest Meadow Drive, Dubuque, Iowa. So what I've submitted is an application for rezoning to develop a multifamily property, 152 units, comprised of 104 townhomes and the balance apartments. So there's 13 townhomes, 8-plex townhomes, and 6 8-plex apartment buildings, total of 152 units. So you may question why the staff report indicates that I'm really premature on coming here, but please understand that I've been trying to get my development before the city since last September. I had a very difficult time even getting to a design review team meeting. Had to invoke Mr. Van Milligan to get that scheduled. I know my project is controversial because of the access that would be required for my development. The access that I would need would be full access on the Northwest Arterial. To give you a little history, my family owned probably half of the final alignment from JFK to Central Avenue. And when the DOT did the acquisition for the right-of-way, we made them do an entire take of our properties, 300 plus acres. The reason being because they were partitioning our properties so grossly that we said, you need to do an entire take. So when the excess land, so then there was quite a bit of excess land, when it was offered back, it has to be offered back to the prior property owner first, which it was offered back to us. We told the DOT at the time that, we purchased this property for development, and so it is, in our mind, it's development property, and we would need access off of the Northwest Arterial if we were going to buy it back, because our plans would be to develop it. So we were granted direct access to the Northwest Arterial at Station 73 plus 00. It was granted for both. So I ended up purchasing 43 of the acres, which is the property that I'm trying to develop here on the north side of the arterial. A family group, myself and 6 family members, bought back the 83 acres on the south side, which was recently sold, about a year ago, sold to the Switch Homes development. So both properties enjoyed legal access to the Northwest Arterial at Station 73 plus 00. So, when we were marketing, so we bought it from the DOT. The DOT is the one who sold it back to us and granted us the legal access. Subsequently, the DOT turned the property over to the city of Dubuque. in the process of marketing this property, and most recently to Switch Homes, the question came up about access. And at that time, Bob Schiesel from the city stated that the city was not going to allow any more access, full access on the Northwest Arterial. That was just not in the plans. And, you know, I challenged him saying, when we bought the property, we would have never bought the property back without access. It makes no sense. Now, granted, the property on the south, the 83 acres on the south side sold to Switch Homes. Okay, they found another way in through Tiffany Court. And now the preliminary plat shows main access through Tiffany Court, secondary access, which would be needed for a development that size, 105 single-family residential, right in, right out only. Originally, the first preliminary plat showed that right in, right out. Guess where? Guess where? Station 73 plus 00. Well, if that was going to be approved, that would then make my access also right in, right out only. That's not going to work for a residential development for my property. So lo and behold, guess what? Switch Homes access got pushed 500 foot west so that it no longer lined up with mine. Now, you know, I got a pretty good idea why that move was made. I was told it was for better sight distance and better excavation, more balancing of the cuts and fills. Perhaps. But anyway, I think it was done to get it away from being directly across from mine so that they didn't have to face me on a challenge on downgrading my access. So I'm struggling to get before the city with my development plan. So, you know, me and my attorney are sending letters to the city, Karina Brumwell, you know, stating we have a right to full access. We're not going to stand back and allow you to downgrade our access. So now, you know, the preliminary plat that's been approved does not downgrade my access because they moved it. Okay, so you know, so I thought, and Karina says, get your development plans. We're not going to look at your access without plans. So I'm struggling trying to get my plans before the city. You know, first working with Bob Schiesel, no response whatsoever. Finally had to, you know, invoke the Mr. Van Milligan to get a meeting set up mid-November, which finally it was set up mid-November. Everybody was there. They said, you know, all the development team was there. Bring us a concept plan. You know, and I asked at the time, I said, please, if you know you're not going to ever allow another full access on the Northwest Arterial, don't waste your time, don't waste my time, you know, tell me that. You know, of course, they couldn't opine on that. They have to go through the process. So, we get the development plan, get it all, or the conceptual plan. I call Sheena saying, okay, I understand, I need to get before the development review team. Okay, this is mid-January. Sheena says, well, you know, we'd prefer to meet with you privately rather than, you know, because the development review team, that's, you know, it's more public and whatnot. So I said, okay, fine, as long as all the same players are there. They weren't all there. Fire department was missing. That meeting finally got set up because the development review team, my understanding, if you get on the agenda by the previous Wednesday, they meet every Thursday. So, but okay, it took until February 3rd to get the meeting set up, and it was not a full design review team, which I was promised. Okay, and so at the design review team. There was city water was there, fire department was not, planning department was there, someone from the streets department was there, Gus Ahoyas was there, city engineer, and so they talked about water, they talked about sewer, they didn't really talk much about access, but you know, I made it very clear that my development doesn't work with a right-in, right-out only. My development only works with a full access, which I feel I have, you know, a legal right to. And, you know, then I was questioned, well, what did the DOT tell you? Well, my patent, it's not a deed, they call it a patent from the DOT, says direct access at station 73+00. So my interpretation is that's, you know, I can go either direction. But anyway, so the conclusion was, let's get these utilities figured out first, you know, and then, because if there's, you know, problems there, then, you know, why waste our time on the access? Which I said, okay, that makes sense, which is what we did. We were promised we would, Gus Ahoyas promised us we would have a answer regarding sanitary sewer capacity by the following week. Well, guess what? We didn't hear anything from them. Beeson and Associates contacted them. Well, you know, do you have anything? Do you have anything? Nothing. And so I said, you know, it's clear to me that, or it appears to me that the city is dragging their feet here, you know, purposely dragging their feet. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. And I think it's over. They just don't want to deal with another access on the Northwest Arterial. I think that's what it boils down to. So I submitted my application for rezoning to get them moving. Okay, so I think I did finally get them moving in this process, but you'll see from the staff report that the recommendation is that you table my request until further study is done. Well, you know, I don't want to be left out there in limbo. Now, I ran into Gus Ahoyas last Monday. He tells me that they're getting close, said he would have an answer for this meeting. I'll have an answer for you Thursday for your meeting. I said, well, Gus, the meeting is Wednesday. So I don't know if he got any information to you or not, but supposedly they're working on it. But I should also state that, you know, I did have a call with Mike Van Milligan saying, gee, Mike, can you help me again? The city, for whatever reason, seems to be, you know, just, you know, delaying me here. You know, they're just, I think Wally asked me the question, is there any particular urgency here? And I said, well, you know, I really can't develop my property until utilities are brought in for the Switch Homes development. You know, and so there's no urgency there. The urgency is that Switch Homes' final plat is going to be coming before the city council probably at the next meeting in 2 weeks. And the concern I have is their access to the Northwest Arterial. You know, my development, it doesn't make sense. That's what's proposed, that right in, right out for Switch Homes doesn't make sense for my development, nor does it make sense for the 120 acres to the east of Switch Homes development, which is eventually going to be developed as well. I mean, so really this boils down to the question of what is the proper access for all the development in the area? Switch Homes, my development, the property that Mike Finnan purchased. So, you know, I desire to get this out in the public realm so the public knows that I want to bring 152 more units into this community for workforce housing. That's what I'm trying to do. But what it's going to boil down to, what's more important to the city? You know, because Mike Van Milligan told me, I asked him outright, Mike, are you against another intersection on the Northwest Arterial? His answer was, it wasn't his decision. It would really be up to the city council, the mayor and council, which makes sense. So, you know, so we have to decide, do we want more housing or do we want to not have another full intersection on the Northwest Arterial? That's kind of what it boils down to. So, you know, they're granted, you know, Wally suggested that I not get on the agenda for this commission until we had these other questions answered. But again, you know, I want the city to know that I would like to do my development, and depending upon what they do for Switch Homes can adversely affect me. I mean, any intersection, the intersections, if I'm going to be granted an intersection, it needs to be directly across from Switch Homes. They can't be staggered. That makes no sense. It needs to be a comprehensive look at, okay, will we allow it, and what makes the most sense. So that's where I stand.
Right. Any questions from the commission for the applicant?
Yeah, I have a question. First, Jim, I appreciate you bringing this to us, and I think it is exciting to see that you're interested in building more housing in Dubuque. I think that's valuable. One question I did have is on the right-in, right-out access. You stated a few times that your development doesn't work with that access. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yes,
why
I
that is?
can. See, unlike Switch Homes, where their plan calls for the primary access to come off of Tiffany Ridge through Tiffany Ridge subdivision, and then actually that right-in, right-out intersection is their secondary, emergency basically, access. There's no other way to access my property. The only way to access, you know, there's no other streets in my vicinity. I can only get access off the Northwest Arterial. So now I would need more than one access as well. And it would be, you know, so I'm looking for a full access, either at Station 73+00 or line it up with Switch Homes 500 foot west of there. And then there would be a secondary access for mine, which would be right in, right out. It would not be another full intersection. So, but for the only primary access that I can get is off that Northwest Arterial. There's no other way for me to get it.
Okay. I do remember at our last time this came up, I think it was when the Switch Homes development was discussed, that we talked about the need not to stop traffic on the Northwest Arterial, particularly in the middle of that pretty large hill right there. I believe that's what we talked about, but I can't remember why. But so that's what you're kind of suggesting, right? Is like you would like to see a full traffic light stop where you.
It would have to be a controlled intersection. It would have to be, you know. And granted, the right in, right out that Switch Homes is proposing. I mean, if that were upgraded to a full controlled intersection, that clearly could work better than at my Station 73+00, because it's not as much on the hill. You know, now sight distance, if there's a traffic light is a moot point there. I was told theirs was moved 500 foot west because better sight distance. But it's more level than 73+00. So I have no problem, you know, if my access was moved like theirs was moved from 73+00 to 500 foot west.
Okay. Can I have another question?
Sure.
So, the only other question I have on this right now is, so you mentioned that there isn't any other street that could provide access, and
Correct.
I guess I don't know what the topography looks like behind this lot, but there is the street up, is that north of the property right now with what looks like a cul-de-sac, or the end of the
Robin
street?
Hood Drive, yeah, no, there's a
and so-
there's a huge
Yeah.
valley there.
Okay.
It's the old access to Union Park,
Okay,
the old Union Park.
okay.
Yep. So that's where we're picking up the name for our development, Union Park Place.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
You know, I should also state, you know, I have the experience and the capacity to do this. I've done this. You know, we own numerous multifamily properties in Dubuque and Quad Cities and Wisconsin, and we've built numerous properties such as this. So we have the experience, we have the, you know, financial ability. We can do this.
Great. Thanks, Jim.
I do have a question too. I'm just trying to process here. I appreciate your passion. But so you're saying you need a secondary access that would also be on the arterial?
Yeah,
So there'd be two stops?
No, the secondary would be right in, right out only.
Okay.
Yeah, I only need, yeah, and that's just emergency. It would be similar to what Switch Homes, you know, is proposing on the Northwest Arterial now. So they're proposing one right in, right out only. But their primary access is coming off of West 32nd Street and Tiffany Ridge.
Right.
So.
Any other questions from the commission? All right, thanks, Mr. Gantz. We'll open it up to members of the public. If there's anybody here that wants to speak for or against the rezoning, please step up to the podium. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. And look for a staff report.
Thank you. Sheena Moon, Associate Planner. So the request before the commission this evening is a rezoning request from AG Agricultural to a planned unit development with planned residential designation. And as the applicant did a wonderful job of identifying where the property is located, I won't go into any great additional detail here in the aerial image. But just want to identify on the map here that the area outlined with the checkered pattern here is the subject property. It's about, so a little bit about the process. So the rezoning request, and this is kind of big picture about the process, there's a rezoning request that requires review recommendation by the Zoning Advisory Commission and City Council. There's a site plan review that would be required if approved, if the zoning is approved rather, and that would go through the city's development review team. And then there is a permit review that would be required with the inspection and construction services. But prior to all of these happening, generally the process is, especially with a planned unit development, that there's a requirement for a conceptual development plan, which the applicant submitted. And we, as the development review team, would sit down to review and discuss that plan. The development review team at that point in the process is really looking to identify kind of these major potential challenges for a project. Access, utilities, those are definitely two that rise to the top of the list. And as Mr. Gantz mentioned, we did have a side meeting, if you will. We were definitely trying to accommodate his schedule at the time, and also give this project the additional kind of one-on-one time that it deserved outside of a development review team meeting where we usually have maybe more than 1 or 2 items on an agenda. So the intent really was to try to help get some answers and move the discussion forward. So a little bit about the history, and again, Mr. Gantz described this better than I could. He mentioned that, the property was essentially part of the, which was now Mosina Farms property to the south. And that was the Northwest Arterial was constructed. It divided those 2 parcels. The property is about 43 acres. It is a vacant lot. It's currently used for crop ground. On the, as you can see, well, in one of the aerial images, you can see where there's 2 kind of developable areas that are currently used for crop ground. It does have frontage along the Northwest Arterial, approximately 2,300 feet of frontage. One of the unique pieces here is that there is a pretty severe elevation change. So from the Northwest Arterial to the northern part of the property is about 135 foot approximately elevation change downhill. So that does limit and kind of push the developable areas to the southern side of the property. There is also a 50-foot wide overhead utility easement that bifurcates the north and the southern portions of the property, and I'll further identify that on the next page here. And then again, there's the 2 areas that are buildable areas. The property has historically been zoned AG agricultural, and again, is currently utilized partially for crop ground. So a little bit about the project and the conceptual plan. So they are proposing 6 8-unit apartment buildings and 13 8-unit townhome buildings. That's 152 units in total. And I want to point out that there was an error in the staff report with respect to the parking. There was a revised conceptual plan. Mr. Gantz was kind enough to clarify for us that there is actually some parking units, some parking spaces below some of the units, which we just didn't capture when we were looking at the conceptual plan. So the staff report says that there's 160 some parking spaces, but in fact there's 294 parking spaces. And the commission did receive a copy of that updated conceptual plan prior to tonight's meeting. Currently, the plan shows 3 points of access. So the middle access here, it's shown in blue, is meant to be right in, right out primary access. And then the other 2 shown to the right and the left here are established more for emergency access. And then again, the yellow line here is identifying that 50-foot overhead utility easement. And again, just to reiterate, the topography does slope downhill to the north here. So a couple of things that I want to highlight from the staff report, the site access being one of the ones that kind of rises to the top. Our staff report does recommend tabling this request, largely so that we can take a look at the site access and resolve any, get clarity for both the applicant as well as the city as to what the developer can expect for access in this site. This is a discussion that is with our city engineering department, and I know they're working to try to determine what that could look like. There's a number of things that need to go into determining access location, and Mr. Gantz is correct. He has a patent that affords him access on the Northwest Arterial. Making sure that access location is in a place that is providing the safest point of ingress and egress is something that our engineering department definitely wants to evaluate in detail. So that is one portion. The traffic patterns in the area, the project will, obviously a new development is going to result in additional trips. The Northwest Arterial is certainly designed to accommodate the additional trips that a project of this scale would result in. And then I think the other main piece to really think about is the utilities. So the city has established and communicated to Mr. Gantz that the water services are adequate to provide service to the property. The engineering department's currently looking at a capacity study to understand how sanitary sewer could be provided or established to the property. And so that is an ongoing discussion that requires a review and an in-depth study to understand the sewer sheds and how it might be the most efficient and effective to get sanitary sewer to the property. And then I already hit on the parking clarification. So again, just want to reiterate there that a total of 292 parking spaces are proposed, which does meet the code required 282, so it's beyond that. And again, just that the conceptual plan has been reviewed by the development review team. And we've provided comment. We do additionally want to have further conversations with Mr. Gantz to resolve the items of access and utilities specifically. I just want to highlight the design review standards, which the UDC sets forward for the commission and the city council when reviewing a PUD amendment. I think it's important to just note that there are requirements to talk about the proposed development is designed to be functionally integrated with existing city streets, sewer and storm sewer and water surfaces. So I think that's probably the big item on that criteria list that gives staff pause as to moving this project forward. And again, based on that, we're happy to answer any questions. I will just also note that we've not received any public input for or against this project.
I do have a question about the main access. As it's currently shown on the concept plan, is it located at the 73 plus 00 location? It is. All right, thank you. And then to clarify, these concept plan shows an access that would allow for left-hand turns?
It would allow for this concept plan. My understanding is this is a right in, right out.
So if I can answer that question, so it's kind of the crux of what we're here when we're talking about and why we're recommending it to be tabled. There's a lot of discussion about access. So based on the plan that's being submitted, there are 3 access points that are being shown here. 2 of them actually are right in, right out access. They're being shown as emergency access only. So not access for the motoring traffic for the site. The main access at the station, 73, I think it's 72, that's shown on 72, is what Mr. Gantz is proposing would like a full interchange access, correct me if I'm wrong, which would involve full access to not only a right in, right out, but also access going across the existing median area and be able to provide opportunity to go east down to Highway 3, and then also going west towards, as you come east to turn into the development. So that's what's currently shown on the plan, and that's why we're having additional discussions to, and you've heard it from Mr. Gantz tonight, there's a lot of discussion about access. And then as Sheena's pointed to, and as Mr. Gantz has brought up as well, as the sanitary sewer discussion. As we look at the overall development plan, the site's a little bit unique in the fact that there's a request to actually pump sanitary sewer from the site over into a different sanitary sewer shed. And that takes some time for evaluation. And the engineering department's looking at the existing capacity of that sanitary sewer in a different drainage basin because this site does slope directly from the Northwest Arterial to the north. As we've indicated, there is a ravine through there as you see the overhead power lines and that valley through there. The city does have a future annexation plan that notes a sanitary sewer line that'll actually go up through that valley. It would provide access to future connectivity whenever that may occur. So there's been ongoing detail analysis of where's that sanitary sewer going to go from. And so that's one of the reasons why we're also requesting to be tabled. Mr. Gantz is correct. I did check with Gus with regards to that, with those evaluation. He says they're pretty close to being able to provide a letter to Mr. Gantz how that's going to be approached. The water department did look at the subdivision because we do have a subdivision in the south for Switch Homes and how we can provide water connectivity to the site. We also look at sanitary sewer. The other thing that when we talked about this whole area is, there was a traffic study that was done for the one subdivision to the south that actually is not just an emergency access. That is actually a main access. It is not a full interchange access, but it is a right and right out. It's not just for emergency vehicles only. That's for the motoring traffic to get in and out of the development to the south, as well as Tiffany Ridge, in addition to other connectivity that'll go to the east with stub streets that are shown on the plan for that. So reason we're looking at here is we are in favor of housing. Don't get me wrong. We need housing. We're definitely in favor of this development. We just want to make sure we can review it to make sure that we're going to meet the requirements for access, safe access is what I should say, to the development, and then also to determine if we have the proper way of providing city services to the location. So after this meeting, after we have the discussion, we're holding off. We're going to have another meeting with the engineering department to have those discussions with regards to the access and the sanitary sewer. So.
All right. Thanks, Wally. Any other questions for the staff?
Yeah, so if we are to table the discussion tonight, what is the timeline for us getting back to Mr. Gantz and having more information, being able to come back to the commission with an updated proposal?
Yeah, so once you table it, we'll have those meetings with Mr. Gantz, and then we'll determine when he would like to have it back on the agenda. As was mentioned, I did not recommend that this actually be placed on the agenda because we're not quite there. You've seen we have a lot of question marks out there still available in regards to access, in regards to sanitary sewer to the site. So basically, after we have that meeting and make that determination, we could place them back on the agenda. It could be as close as next zoning advisory commission meeting. It just depends. So.
Okay. And then, is there a, Mr. Gantz, can you answer, is there a specific, is there a need to have this decision today versus in 2 weeks or 4 weeks, or? Yeah.
Only from the perspective of what's decided for the final plat for Switch Homes, like I said, is going to be coming before the council here for approval. And that's showing that right in, right out. I just don't, I guess what I'm saying is, in conjunction with looking at what's the safest, what makes the most sense for my development, I strongly believe it needs to look at Switch Homes as well, and I think it should be incorporating the future development that's going to take place to the east of Switch Homes. So, I don't know if it's, is Tiffany Ridge, is that expected to support further development to the east as well? What I'm saying is, you really, when this traffic study is done as to what makes the most sense for my development, it really needs to be, the question is, what makes this the most sense for all the development in that area that would eventually be serviced by the full intersection that I am requesting. And again, my development doesn't work without a full intersection. There's just no way that I could, develop the property and with the right in, right out. It has to be, my tenants have got to be able to go both directions. And that can only be done through a full intersection. And for safety reasons, it's got to be a signaled intersection.
All right, thanks.
So, so no real urgency on my part other than the fact that I would hate to see something approved that has to be reworked. So in other words, a right in, right out for Switch Homes that then has to be upgraded to a full intersection.
Okay.
That's the only constraint that I see.
Okay.
We should strive to keep the discussion to the commission. Any other discussion?
I think that's pretty much
I would
all
just like to
had.
reiterate what kind of Ryan was asking. I forget what meeting Mr. Gantz was here already previously, but I understand his frustration. If what he told us was true, I'm assuming so. It would be nice if we could give him a firm date. Common courtesy, I think, if we need to prod other departments within the city to get some of these issues answered for him. Just my comment.
I agree with her as well. Sounds like things are moving kind of slow. So in spring, it's time to, I just don't want to delay anything. And I get the whole other projects are in connection, so.
Right, thanks. Martha, do you have any comments or?
Well, I think until we have the information about the sewer and the intersection, the access point to the development stuff, I think we need to table it. I don't know, according to Wally, there has to be a study for the sewer to see what'll work. Depending on how long that takes, I mean, it has to be done because they can't do it without sewer, so.
All right, thank you. Any other discussion?
Can I try and answer their question? So the question was asked, whether or not you can table it to a specific date to come back before the zoning advisory commission. Is that was your question, or?
I just like to give a date to Mr. Gantz.
Oh, sure. Sure. So there's a lot of study and analysis that comes along with these reviews. And don't get me wrong, we want this development to move forward. We just need to have the discussions that get involved with it. We're talking about a plan unit development that's including almost 160 units. So it's not just no small development where it's just a site plan. There's a significant amount of traffic volume, scale. The reason why they require plan unit development is to look at the impact of that on the surrounding properties. And we have this conceptual development that gets drafted. It's not just a blanket zoning where you just have to meet the simple bulk regulations. We have to look how it all works together and fits into the community. So the discussion would be in order to give a time frame to the city to move forward. I don't think that's in your power as a zoning advisory commission. You could table it to a specific meeting. And if you table it to that meeting, and after we've had our meetings with Mr. Gantz to try to resolve the issues, if those have been resolved, we can definitely bring it forward. We can also bring it forward like we did tonight, with not having all the answers brought before us. And then we can look at, if there's an opportunity to review and approve that at that time, or table it again, or just proceed with the request with as proposed. Then you guys can make a recommendation, then we take it on to city council. Mr. Gantz did touch on, he wanted to get it before the council. He did come to the zoning advisory, or to the city council on Monday night as an item from the public, and he did brief the council with regards to his concerns about his development and the impacts that the development to the south, if that comes before them, how that will interact with them. So that the council is well aware of that. That was brought to their attention. They can't respond to that during the public input. I was not present for that. I was actually out of town at conferences, but I did watch the video. So they are well aware of Mr. Gantz's request that's coming before this commission as they look forward to moving forward with the development in the area. So.
All right, thanks. With that, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion that we table the application to rezone the property for Mr. Gantz to a future meeting so that the city can get the sewer study done and the traffic flow study access point.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, a motion by Chris, second by Sim.
Christ?
Aye.
Kemp?
Aye.
Russell?
Aye.
Semp?
Aye.
Zucchero?
Okay, thank you. Okay, we are going to move on to item number 2 of our public hearing. Let's see, to rezone property from County R1 Single Family Residential to City Planned Unit Development with Planned Industrial. Is our applicant here this evening? If you would state your name and address and.
Good evening. I am Sean Hilborn. My address is 17509 Allen Jackson Drive in Dubuque. So thank you for the Zoning Commission for allowing us to talk about this project and telling you about it. So right now, we're with partnerships. This has been a long process. Give you a little bit of background, what we're looking for the zoning and kind of where we've been. So our partners is Greater Dubuque Development Group, Gronin, the city planning, engineering. This has been a very long process. We've had a lot of partners in the community, along with the utility companies that have helped us. So the background is Simmons purchased the Flex Steel building back in the end of 2020. From January 1st of 21 to July 1st of 2021, which is about 6 months, they completed a $60 million project with the help of all those partners that I had just discussed, plus there's many more that were included that were not mentioned. The goal was to convert the existing Flex Steel building out on the Sipo Road into a wet pet food facility. That entailed a $60 million project, and since that time, Simmons has invested roughly $100 million into that project, in the plant out there. So originally, Simmons was slated to employ 271 employees. That was part of the development agreement. As of today, they are around 400 employees. Part of that development agreement was to build a 75,000 square foot warehouse within 5 years of the closing date. And we are here today because we're looking to build a 250,000 plus square foot warehouse on an adjacent property to their existing facility. Currently, Simmons has a warehouse space on Chavanel and on Kerper, so it's not the most efficient use of their resources. The original warehouse, besides the 75 when we started design, was 190,000 square feet. It has now grown to approximately 252,000 square feet. This project's going to add 10 new jobs to the city of Dubuque at a minimum. And then the warehouse is adjacent to their existing facility. So the existing Flex Steel building would be here. And then Simmons currently or will own this cul-de-sac at some point, and then they'll have access off of that cul-de-sac to the new building. And then this building right here is Tri-State Quality Metals, just for kind of a bearing point. So what we're here tonight for is we're looking for this area. I don't know how well you can see this highlighted area. The Brem project property here, there's about 2.8 acres that we're looking to annex in from the county, Dubuque County. From what I understand, that has been approved. Now we just need to start the process of rezoning that and getting that reintroduced or brought into the city through the annexation process. The warehouse will result in less traffic, as the Simmons inbound trucks are going to be coming from their existing plant, so they'll never leave Simmons site, which is going to help alleviate some traffic. Only the outbound trucks will be the traffic at this point. We are going above and beyond, trying to make sure that we're being good neighbors to some of the surrounding. There's a farm right next door. We're building a nice building that is durable. It's going to be all precast structural steel, 50 plus years. So with that, we just want to see if we can get this rezoned and start the annexation process. So
Great, thank you. Any questions this evening for our applicant? All right, thank you. Okay, being that this is a public hearing, we'll open up the floor for public input. All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and close it. Need my cheat sheet here. Who's doing the staff report this evening? Jason, thank you. I had another one.
John and Diane Brem, current owners, are requesting rezoning on behalf of Sipo Warehouse LLC, the future owners, of the subject property from County R1 to PI Planned Industrial in the Dubuque Industrial Center South. The subject lot is in Dubuque County, just outside the city of Dubuque limits, and is in the process of being annexed. It is 2.804 acres and lies east of Cottingham Road and south of Sipo Road. It will be subdivided from the larger agricultural parcel that it is currently part of. The newly created lot will be consolidated with the existing lot to the east to allow the construction of the planned warehouse that you heard about earlier. The property will be accessed from Sipo Road and Simmons Way. This project aligns with the city's comprehensive plan in that it attracts large employment centers with access to infrastructure facilities, and ensures that such development does not disproportionately impact residential areas. And it allows for appropriate expansion of existing industrial parks as identified on the future land use map. The plan also notes that expansion within and adjacent to existing industrial development is anticipated. Adequate city utilities are available in Dubuque Industrial Center South and will be extended to the site for the proposed warehouse project. The Dubuque Industrial Center South Planned Unit Development Ordinance contains bulk standards that include requirements for lot area, lot coverage, frontage, building height, setbacks for front, rear, and side yards. These items would be reviewed for compliance during the site plan review process. Prior to any development taking place on the property, the applicant would be required to obtain an approved site plan. Site plans are reviewed by all relevant city departments through the DRT process. The applicant would also be required to obtain the necessary permits through the Inspection and Construction Services Department prior to any work commencing on the property. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Any questions this evening for staff? Okay. Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the request as submitted.
I'll second.
Who seconded?
That's Commissioner Christ. So we have a motion and a second. Jason, if you would, take roll.
Kemp?
Aye.
Norton?
Aye.
Russell? Semp?
Aye.
Zucchero?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So that motion does pass, and it will go before City Council on April 17th. Thank you. Okay, we are on item number 3 of our public hearing. Next item up is located at 1061 Cedar Cross Road. Is our applicant here this evening?
Good evening. I'm Jennifer Clemens Conlon, attorney with Clemens Law Firm at 2080 South Park Court, Dubuque, Iowa 52003. I'm here appearing for my partner, Nate Rundy, who is unable to personally appear, and we're with the applicant, Tim Ertl, who's with me in order to answer any questions that you may have. Tim is the future owner of the property at 1061 Cedar Cross Road with the hopes of developing it for a project that will meet the needs of that community. At this point, that project looks like it will most likely be either a car wash or a coffee shop. But as a future purchaser or future owner of the property, the purchase is contingent upon his getting it rezoned to the C3 so that he has more flexibility in developing the project. In order to meet the goal, we do need this minor modification from the CS to the C3. The new zoning will remain consistent with the rest of the area. As you look at the zoning map, it's either CS or C3 throughout that entire area. But the C3 does provide him with more flexibility for the use of the property than does the current zoning. You all have a copy of the application and staff report, so I don't want to repeat everything that's in there. As you know, it's already a commercial corridor. The testing from the city staff suggests that it won't have a substantial impact on the adjacent properties, that it will only cause marginally more traffic in the area. So ultimately, it is a minor change to that property with limited impact on the community. I did see that there was one concern voiced in writing to the group before we came here today, but that concern related primarily to water runoff and drainage. And it's my understanding that once the zoning is changed, that once Mr. Allen or Mr. Ertl has a project in design, that he's going to go through the development review team. And it looked like from the city staff reports and speaking with Mr. Ertl that all of those concerns with regard to water runoff or drainage could easily be addressed as part of that process to ensure that the project that's ultimately implemented addresses any concerns that may exist with regard to those issues. I'm not aware of any other written objections or concerns being brought to the attention of the board in advance of that time. So Tim's available to answer any questions that you might have. I would do the best that I can, but I'm guessing that he's going to be in a better position to do most of that.
Thank you, Jennifer. Commissioners, do we have any questions for our applicant this evening?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this is a public hearing, so we will open it up to the floor for any comments for or against this particular item. Very good. Seeing none, we'll close that, and we will turn it over to Travis.
Thank you. Assistant Planner Travis Schrobelgen. As the applicant proposed, that they're looking from moving from C3 to or C2 to C3 in the hopes of making it more marketable. The C3 district does have 57 total uses as opposed to the C3s or CS's 38. This is a little bit of news to me with the car wash and coffee shop, but those are permitted uses in the C3 district. Any development, of course, would have to go through the DRT process for stormwater access. And on that point, there is a shared access in the middle of this, not in the middle of the property, but between this property and the property to the south. They will have to abide by that. Generally speaking, this is a commercial corridor. The comprehensive plan shows this area as commercial. It does not distinguish between C3 or CS. The uses in the C3, again, are more general. So without a specific project, we are looking at all the uses despite the applicant's discussion previously. And we did receive that one opposition. I also received another call. It was more of an inquiry from the property owner to the south. They're just requesting the process and what the impact might be. And I just basically stated what I said today. So with that, I believe that is about all I have. Yeah, again, more detail would come with a proposed development, and we would obviously take it through the TRT process. So that's all I have, unless you have questions.
Thank you, Travis. Any questions for staff this evening? Well, I will say this is clearly, I think are those two vacant lots between the retail center and I think that's Caterpillar, right? On the north side? Is that two parcels or three?
I believe it's two, and the third one is, it's got a major easement on it, I believe for drainage purposes.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
may I add some additional? So you are correct. There's actually three parcels here that were owned by a developer. And during that discussion, especially on Cedar Cross Road, we don't like having multiple curb cuts for every lot that's located out here. So as you can see on the plat, and as what Assistant Planner Schroem has indicated, there is a shared access that'll go between lots 1 and 2 on the property. And then there's an additional access to that third lot to the south in order to address site visibilities for intersection or for the driveway accesses across the street and also for access into these sites. So as Travis has indicated, you know, they're well aware of that shared access easement. So that's where their access point would be for the property. So
that will serve as the singular access point for lot 1 and lot 2.
For lot 1 and lot 2. And depending on, you know, how it develops, you know, there could be potential for like a small frontage road here, but they would have to work it out with the adjoining property owners. So,
yeah. Okay. Any other comments? Questions? All right. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the property listed at 1061 Cedar Cross Road to rezone it from CS Commercial Service and Wholesale to C3 General Commercial.
I'll second.
Okay. We have a motion and we have a second. Jason?
Norton?
Aye.
Russell?
Aye.
Sem?
Aye.
Zucchero?
Aye.
Christ?
Aye.
Kemp?
Aye.
And Mulligan.
Aye. Okay, that motion does pass. It will go before City Council on April 17th. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you. Thank you, Tim. Okay, we are on item number 4. We are going to be discussing 900 Alta Vista Street. Is our applicant here this evening? You would state your name and address?
Sure. My name is Steve Skirring. My address is 7611 Winston in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. I'm the Chief Financial Officer for Affordable Housing Network and Four Oaks Family and Children Services. Affordable Housing Network and Four Oaks are affiliated nonprofits with operations throughout the state of Iowa and in Dubuque. Affordable Housing Network is in the process of acquiring a property from Loras College at 900 Alta Vista. We're here requesting a zoning change from institutional to office residential. The purchase of the property is contingent on that zoning change. Loras historically used that property for classrooms and offices on the first floor and dorm rooms on the upper floors. If Affordable Housing Network is successful in acquiring the property, Four Oaks programming would move into the first floor relatively quickly, and then the long-term plan for the upper floors would be affordable apartments once funding was available. So we're excited about having Four Oaks programming and Affordable Housing Network tenants in the same building. Makes it easy to provide supportive housing and other services for those tenants. We're excited about this location in particular due to the proximity of Dubuque Community Schools Alternative Learning Center. Some of the kids that Four Oaks works with attend that school, so it'd be convenient, basically walk across the parking lot to get services. Four Oaks programming is a lot of community-based home visit type programming, so on any given day, we'd expect 10 or fewer employees in that building on that first floor. There's the potential for a handful of clients coming during the day, but the traffic would be low. The upper floors, when those were rehabbed, we'd be taking multiple dorm rooms and combining them to make individual apartments. So there'd be far fewer people living in the upper floors once our rehab was complete compared to what historically has been there as dorm rooms. The parking on the premises is adequate, more than adequate for our Four Oaks employees and clients. There's parking immediately across the street that's owned by a church that has indicated they'd be willing to lease us those parking spaces should we need them. And then there's also room on the property itself. There used to be another building there that was torn down. So there's room on the property itself to add some additional parking should we need it. So we're confident that there's adequate parking day one for our Four Oaks programming and adequate future parking as we would build out apartments. Also here with me tonight, I have the Director of Four Oaks Dubuque Operations, if there's any questions about Four Oaks programming. I have Ani's director here, Affordable Housing Network Director, if there's questions about how Affordable Housing Network operates. And then there's also a representative from Loras College, if there's any questions for current owner.
Great. Well, thank you for that. If you wouldn't mind, tell me your name again.
Steve Skirring.
Steve. I didn't write it down.
Nope, that's
Thank
fine.
you. Okay, are there any questions for Steve? Okay, thank you. Okay, this is a public hearing, so we'll open up the floor for any comments regarding this particular topic. If you would state your name and address.
Jim Gagne, 935 Oxford. I'm about a half a block southeast of there. I've got two questions and one recommendation. I wondered if the old pine trees are going to come down, and if the wall, I'm sure the wall's not going to come down, but it needs tuck pointing. University never bothered to tuck point. I think the building is tuck pointed, but it's such a neat wall, and it just keeps, the mortar just keeps falling out of it, though it's not crumbling. And my recommendation is that is not a pedestrian-friendly intersection with University and Alta Vista. And that the college kids really didn't cross to the south. They didn't really need to cross University. They went the other direction. And I just want to point that out. I brought that up when the church was trying to have something, a housing unit built on the corner there. And it's just tricky. And it's a good place for 2 speed cameras for both directions. That goes that way. That's all I have.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any other public input? All right, I will close it at this point. Back to Steve, where are you sitting? There you are. Do you have any rebuttal based on what you just heard? If not, that's okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, with that, we'll turn it over to staff. Travis?
Yep, thank you. Assistant Planner Travis Shrobelgen. So as the applicant stated, this is rezoning from institutional, where it was office and dorms and classrooms for some time. And before that, it was also similar use with the visitation nuns who went around and were teaching at different schools. So they are rezoning to, or requesting rezoning to the OR district, which would allow the residential. It would also allow the offices that they're proposing. In 1994, Loras College acquired the property, so it's been since then that it's been used as dormitories fairly intensively with the classrooms as well. In 2016, the applicant noted a second building. That second building was struck by lightning in 2016 and tore down. So any of the traffic and general activity on the site is somewhat reduced a bit just by the lack of that second building that was on site. So when comparing pre and post rezoning, there's probably some grace room there. Secondly, there is room for additional parking on the site, as the applicant spoke or mentioned. We would review the building plan. We have not seen an internal diagram or the modifications being made. It would go through the DRT or at least the building permit requirements, and at that time the parking lot and parking on-site parking would be addressed. This is a mixed-use neighborhood. There is a commercial corridor slightly to the left or the west, and that's this building and this site acts as a buffer against the residential uses to the east. I received one call, and it was more of a comment. It wasn't for or against, but it was the comment regarded traffic in that same intersection. Kind of just noted that maybe it could be addressed, but they did not oppose the rezoning itself. I also have, so again, I would just restate that they're looking at 20 to 25 multi-family residential units, and it should not increase the number of traffic trips in the surrounding neighborhood as compared to previous uses. And that is all I have, unless you have questions.
Thank you, Travis. We'll open it up to the commission with any questions we might have for staff. Okay, seeing none. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to rezone the property from institutional to office residential.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second.
Russell?
Aye.
Senf?
Aye.
Zucchero?
Aye.
Christ?
Aye.
Kemp?
Aye.
Norton?
Aye.
Mulligan?
Aye. Okay, that motion passes. Steve and team, thank you for that, and we look forward to hearing about your investment in Dubuque. Okay, we are moving on to item number, before I do that, I don't think I said it. This will go before City Council on April 17th. Thank you. All right, now let's move on to item number 5 at 1301 Central Avenue. Is our applicant here this evening? Come on up.
Hello, thanks for having me this evening. My name is Scott Kwasinski. I'm from Horizon Development Group. The address is 5201 East Terrace Drive in Madison, Wisconsin. For those that are not aware, Horizon is active in multifamily housing development, construction, and property management. with properties across the Midwest, and we've developed here in Dubuque. Recently, we have a number of properties here, one being Roosevelt West, just off of Radford Road, a 44-unit housing community, also Applewood properties along Pennsylvania Avenue, to name a few. The request tonight is to rezone 1301 Central Avenue from C4 downtown commercial to OR office residential, and that is to permit the intended use of a 30-unit affordable housing development. This would be an adaptive reuse of the roughly 33,000 square foot facility. We're intending to submit a financing application later on this month that would help to finance this through affordable housing tax credits. We're intending to develop the property with, or redevelop the property on the inside with 1, 2, and 3 unit, 1, 2, and 3 bedroom unit types on floors 1, 2, and 3. The reason for the rezone request specifically is the C4 zoning only allows multifamily on floors 2 and 3, and we're intending on using the entire building, floors 1, 2, and 3. So that's the kind of the technicality there. That's about it. I should also note we had a neighbor meeting. We hosted a session on Monday, April 3rd, invited the appropriate parties to that meeting. 2 residents showed up to that meeting, both just generally very inquisitive and curious about what the development would be, and certainly were not opposed to anything there and supported the request. So happy to take any questions, but that's a quick overview. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Any questions for our applicant this evening? Okay, thank you. All right, this is a public hearing, so we will open up the floor for any comments. Okay, seeing none, I will close that. This evening, Jason, if you would please.
As the applicant stated, the request is to rezone from C4 to OR, primarily to allow ground floor residential uses. The subject property is composed of one parcel of 1.1 acres. The building footprint occupies approximately 35% of the area, and the rest is comprised of 58 off-street parking spaces, utilities, and landscaping. Vehicles can access the parcel from all 4 adjacent streets: Central, 13th Street, Iowa, and Loris Boulevard. The subject parcel is bordered by residential, commercial, and institutional uses. The building is composed of 2 buildings that have been joined, one constructed in 1870 and one constructed in 1888, both of which are before the advent of zoning. It has served many uses over the years, including commercial storefronts, a bank, professional offices, a public hall, and residential apartments. From 1959 through 2000, it housed the Walsh stores. In 2002, Heartland Financial renovated the building and used it as their operations center until they moved into the Roshek building in 2020. Both buildings are listed on the National Register of Historic Places. The comprehensive plan goals support this type of development, as it will provide multifamily housing in a mixed-use area with units that are affordable and market rate. This helps to provide access to goods and services in a walkable setting to increase opportunity and reduce transportation costs. The new residents who may live here will help make downtown Dubuque and the Central Avenue corridor more vibrant. Given the permitted uses in the OR district are generally residential or low-intensity office, establishment of the OR residential zoning district would help promote a mix of housing and allow for other mixed uses in the area. The code lists bulk requirements, and the property is compliant with all of them, except for the front setbacks of 0 feet along Central Avenue and 13th Street. But this is a reasonable nonconformity for a historic building in the downtown area. Perhaps the most significant question to address in this rezoning request is whether ground floor residential use is appropriate and beneficial here. While retail shops along the ground floor of this building would be desirable, the building has not had retail since the Walsh stores closed in 2000. Heartland Financial did actively occupy the building, but it was an office use with the entrance in the back. All the windows along Central and 13th were covered over, and none of the doors were accessible. Vacant storefronts are numerous along Central and throughout downtown. The current applicant sees residential apartments as a viable use for this whole building. Ground floor residential uses are found in the blocks west and north of this property, which are also zoned OR. The extension of the OR district and ground floor residential use is reasonable for this area, existing market conditions, to help meet the demand for affordable housing in Dubuque, and to increase downtown vibrancy with new residents. Any changes to the site must be reviewed and approved by the development review team. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Any questions for staff? Well, on that note of retail on the first floor, obviously I think it's desired state that we have it. As somebody who has built and developed in downtown Dubuque, that has traditionally been a loss leader, unfortunately, right now. So the ability to promote investment in our community is key, and I can understand how housing on that first floor is really critical to really making sure those numbers pencil out. So I agree with your report, Jason. Okay, so with that, if there's no other comments, we'll look to the commission.
I'll make a motion to rezone the property from C4 to OR.
Okay.
Second?
We have a motion and we have a second by, I think I saw Zucchero, is that right? All right, she won.
Semp?
Aye.
Zucchero? Christ?
Aye.
Kemp?
Aye.
Norton?
Aye.
Russell? Mulligan?
Aye. Okay, so the motion passes. It will go before our city council on, I should know this, April 17th. Scott, we appreciate you traveling in and look forward to hearing about your investment in Dubuque. Okay, we are on to item number 6, which I believe our city of Dubuque is going to be presenting this evening. Is that right?
Correct. Yes.
Sheena Moon, Associate Planner. So the proposal is a text amendment. This text amendment is specific to the evaluation of offsite impacts of subdivision and site plan developments. Really what this proposed amendment is doing is taking policies that the city currently has in place with regards to potentially requiring additional studies for offsite impacts of developments and evaluating what improvements may be necessary as a result of development. So it's taking these policies that we currently have around these issues and codifying them into code. The city's been consistent in implementing these policies for development throughout the city, and again, just seeking now to make them part of the Unified Development Code for consistency's sake for all developers. And with that, we're happy to answer any questions that you may have specific to this proposed text amendment.
Okay, I do have questions. However, this is a public hearing, so maybe I'll wait till after. So with that, actually, first of all, from the commission, do we have any questions for Sheena? Okay. This is a public hearing, so we'll go ahead and open that up to the floor for any comments or questions. Okay, we'll go ahead and close that. I do have a question. I have a comment, and as somebody who develops in the city, my experience has been highly positive. And I've worked with certainly everybody sitting here and your team, and I've been very appreciative of your approach to development within the city. And I will also highlight, contrary to maybe some comments we heard this evening, I feel the timeliness of response has always been very quick, and that's highly appreciated. Having gone through a couple of different projects, there are items that arise that are beneficial to understanding the project better, such as traffic studies or things of that nature. And my only comment right now is, quite frankly, coming from a place of maybe ignorance, to where I don't feel like I understand the request well enough yet. And I really want to dive into the Unified Development Code section that is stated here. And I don't feel that I am up to speed enough right now to support the change. I am sure the change is coming from a good place. But again, as somebody who has gone through these processes, you know, if there were other people sitting in the chairs than those that are sitting here right now, those rules could be looked at a little bit differently. And that is my concern, frankly, not understanding it well enough right now. And so what I would actually not support going forward, what I would support is the tabling of it. That is my position right now. So I wanted to share that both to staff and also with my fellow commissioners. Maybe I'll stop there and open it up for any other discussion.
One thing I'll ask is, I believe we've talked before about the intent to redo the Unified Development Code. Is that correct? So another thought that I have is, I don't know why necessarily we want to go in and make an amendment to the existing code if we plan to rewrite the entire code or look at the entire code holistically at some point in the near future. Yeah, those are my comments. I don't know if you have an answer for that too, but.
Yeah. Sure, definitely. So understand that the Unified Development Code is a document that, you know, has changed over time. A complete rewrite is when we sit down, we look at the overall flow, the overall document. Is there changes to it? We do have funding to update the Unified Development Code. Certain things have come to light that when we get questions with regards to development in our community, that we look at amending our Unified Development Code to place an ordinance. So a lot of times what we have is we have a policy, and a policy is just, that's what it is. It's a policy. What does an ordinance do for you? It's actually the teeth, the law that provides that. So we've had some discussions with regards to developments as we look at them and the impact to offsite improvements as the direct result of those. So typically, if you think of a traffic study, required traffic study, and you have a large scale user or a use that's going to come in and it's going to have a significant impact to an intersection, the question always gets brought up, who's responsible for making those improvements to the intersection? Typically, it's the direct result of the development itself, but also there may be an existing traffic situation that's going on with the city. The way this is written and phrased in the ability, or phrased when we look at it, and we look at it from a site plan and also a subdivision requirement, is how are those off-site impacts going to be funded and how that's laid out. Currently, we have the ability to do that, and we've been doing it through policy, but now we're looking at actually placing it by ordinance. And then we look at the layout of this ordinance as you check on it. You know, there's descriptions of the ability and the authority from the city planner after requiring certain studies to either approve or deny a site plan or a subdivision plan. In my knowledge, we have never denied a site plan or a subdivision plat in the city that I've been working on. We have always had the ability to come to an agreement with regards to the layout. Pat's shaking his head over there, if you can think of some. For that, I know we've had some of the county that were in our 2 miles that we've denied. But as we look at those different site plans and those developments, this just helps provide us more teeth because it is then an ordinance as opposed to being in a policy document. So,
Thank you, Wally. You know, one other comment I failed to share that was on my mind is I have the luxury of doing some work in other communities as well. And I really would like the opportunity to explore in a more definitive manner how other communities in Iowa operate in this very specific area. Obviously, I am very pro-development in Dubuque. And the last thing I want to do is create a situation that could create a hurdle that would potentially give somebody the opportunity to choose elsewhere. And so, again, I believe it's coming from a good place, from the city, out of frankly just not fully understanding it yet. I have a hard time supporting it right this second. So I want to share that. I really think there'd be value in understanding how our neighboring, but I'll also use the word competing, communities operate in this area right here.
Mr. Chair.
You want me to address some of that?
Go ahead.
Sure. So when we looked at developing this ordinance, we did reach out to several other municipalities and discussed with them. It's like, how do you go about making offsite improvements as a direct result of a development and those offsite improvements? A lot of cities approach it kind of the old way, like we were talked about it. It's a negotiation, it's a discussion with regards to coming up with a development agreement. But also sometimes there's city incentives that gets provided as part of those costs that get associated with that. That doesn't necessarily exclude that from what's happening here with this ordinance. All those are being discussed, especially with those offsite improvements. And, I'm going to touch on a few developments and just kind of give you an example of where we've done this in the past for development purposes. So for instance, think of Sam's Club. When Sam's Club came into our community, a large retail user, for that. As part of the site plan review and part of the off-site improvements, a traffic study was done. And that traffic study required that the improvements be made at the intersection. So they paid actually 100% of the cost for the traffic signal light located on Asbury Road. They also covered a portion of the share of the traffic light that's on Plaza Drive. They paid for the right-in, right-out access for that development for that. Other sites that we've also looked at that the developer shared in the cost was, for instance, the traffic signal on the Northwest Arterial at Holiday Drive. That was put in by the developer. That was actually covered almost 100% by that developer for that improvement at that intersection. Not to mention, we also have the traffic signal on Asbury Road at Holiday Drive as well that goes into Asbury Plaza. And also the right-in, right-out access. So during those large-scale developments and those traffic studies, we look at those impacts from those and help arrive at what we can and can't do for requirements for payment of those off-site improvements. And this ordinance just helps kind of bolster the discussion with regards to what can we require, what the reasoning is for, what do we mean by some of this language. If you read through the document, actually I have Barry Lindahl tonight is one of the lawyers that works for our city that helped derive and helped us draft this ordinance. As you read through it, it talks about, being related to the nature extent of the impact of the development. It has the ability for us as the city to place certain requirements on what that impact's going to be. This actually helps quantify it. And actually, I think it helps provide a little more clarity for a developer of what the requirements will be for that. But, that is something that we're just trying to look at getting codified for that. So if you are considering tabling this request, I'm not sure if you are, and I know Pat, you haven't spoke yet. So we would want some clear understanding what specifically you would like to have us come back to explain before the board, or maybe there may be some questions that either myself or Mr. Lindo might be able to answer for you tonight. So maybe Pat, you want to?
Yeah. Obviously, I deal with these on a professional level day in and day out through my real job. And I guess when I read this, when we got this emailed to us a couple days ago here, I was reading it, and to me, it seems a little bit vague. It's almost like just anytime we think there might be a problem off-site, we can require a study or we can require this. It doesn't really say when that's going to be identified. Those are the types of things that need to be identified at the initial concept meeting or the very early on in the process, so that the developer can then, whether it's an individual site, if it's a big development, so they can then factor those costs in and potential costs that they may end up incurring, whether it be a full intersection signalization cost, whether it be, on top of a $20,000 traffic study on top of, you know, some other things. Because I mean, some of these costs can really add up. And some of them might be to the point where it could actually just kill a project. I mean, there have been projects killed. By traffic studies alone, I mean, I can give you a list of those.
Yeah.
But anyway, I guess to me, it just seemed a little bit open-ended. I understand it has to be flexible because every site is different, every development is different. The topography of Dubuque is crazy. It's an old town. There are existing conditions you just have to work around. And I understand that those existing conditions need to be evaluated. But then I also am looking at it from the side of the developer. I'm just trying to come up with some sort of middle ground here. Maybe a flow chart of how some of these things are, when something would be needed. I don't know, I'm just throwing that out there, just kind of winging it right now. But, you know, just a little bit more guidance. Because right now it's just kind of, I mean, right now it actually seems to be working right now. You know, if you have your initial meeting and say, okay, look, we've got some real problems at this intersection, using traffic as an example. Does your development, is that going to make things worse, significantly worse, based on, you know, long-range plans and everything else? This intersection may need work no matter what. So there's a whole bunch of different things that need to be evaluated here. And I agree with Mr. Mulligan that I think it is a little bit premature, and that I think it does need a little more clarification and a little more definitions and that sort of thing. I don't know if that really helps you out or not, but that's my recommendation or my suggestion.
So to address some of those comments, so for instance, I see what you're saying. It says, for instance, city planner may require applicant to provide a study of offsite impacted development. That's pretty broad, right?
Right.
Like what kind of study could that be? And typically, you know, we're going to look at that as a development comes into our office and we have the pre-application meeting. And then we're going to be able to pull in those other conversations. So in the past, our pre-application meetings used to just be between the engineering department and the city department with the applicant. As you've known, as you've gone through the process, we've actually expanded that entire pre-application process to the entire development review team. So, I mean, examples, for instance, tonight we were just talking about a development that has a large implication, or could be potential impacts to a sanitary sewer. You know, the study. The question is, like, who's going to pay for that study? Is that something that the city could require that development pay for the study, or is the city going to do that? You know, all those questions. But typically, a lot of these are directly the result of a traffic study, mostly,
right,
in intersection improvements. And as part of this, it gives me the authority as part of the site plan review or the subdivision review to require that specifically. And we do require them anyway, regardless. Like you said, the process is working right now. The question that gets brought up is, you know, how are we making that determination? What's the benefit? You know, who's responsible for paying? Are they 100% responsible for it? Is there a portion that the city's obligated to pay? Is there, you know, how that's all broken down? That's all being discussed. This is just pretty much trying to put it in a codified ordinance type of way. And I don't know if Barry has an opportunity to come up and speak, if you want to address some of the comments with regards to, you know, when we talk about, you know, required construction or payment must have an essential nexus to legitimate interest, and basically the code regulations that we brought up, and why we're kind of putting this in the ordinance to begin with.
Yeah, let me see if I can shed a little bit of light on what prompted this. You know, as Wally's already mentioned, and as you all know, from time to time we get developments that are obviously going to create significant necessity for significant public improvements. And these developments just sometimes come out of nowhere. They're not anticipated. The city has not budgeted any funds to pay for those developments. So most of the time, we're able to work out agreements with the developers to either pay for, in whole or in part, or construct the improvements. What happens if a developer doesn't agree? We know that we've got a huge demand for an infrastructure improvement as a result of a development, and the developer says, well, I'm not going to build it. We have no authority under the code now to deny that subdivision plan or that site plan, subdivision or that site plan. No authority in the code to deny either approval of either one of those. So what happens is it puts us, the city, in the position, in some instances, and we have one right now, where the developer says, I'm not going to pay for or construct the improvement. It's a multi-million-dollar necessity, and the city's going to be stuck with it because we can't deny the site plan approval based on what's in our city code right now. So this ordinance does a couple of things. One is it allows us or gives us the authority to require off-site improvements. That's not in the code right now. We think as a general matter, we probably have some ability to do that, but if we get challenged, if somebody says you don't have the legal authority to do that, then we can't look to our own city code to say, yes, we do. So one of the things this ordinance does is it gives the city the authority to require off-site improvements under certain conditions. And it also places limitations on what we can require, and that's a matter of Iowa and federal constitutional law, and that language is in here as well. What kinds of improvements we can require as a legal matter. The second thing it does, it gives the planner and the zoning commission and the city council under certain circumstances the authority to deny site plan approval or a subdivision if the city determines we just can't afford it. It's just not going to work. And we don't have that authority now. And again, we can be put in the position where we have to approve that subdivision or that site plan, knowing that there are going to be substantial public infrastructure improvements required without the necessary funding available. So it does two things. It gives us the authority to require off-site improvements, which we don't have now in our city code, and it places some limitations on what the city can require as a matter of Iowa and federal constitutional law. It gives the city planner the authority to deny site plan approval or subdivision approval if the developer doesn't agree to some conditions to construct in whole or part those improvements or to pay for them. Gives the authority to the planner to deny that approval. And beyond that, and in addition to whether or not the planner approves it or not, it gives the zoning commission in the case of plat approval and the city council in the case of site plan approval, notwithstanding the developer's agreement to provide the funding or to construct the improvements, the city council, as a legislative matter, can say, we simply don't have the funds to go ahead with this project, which is, again, something we don't have right now. So that's where we're coming from. It's to kind of cover some gaps in our city code that are really, really important for us as a city with some of these developments.
Thank you. Any questions?
Not for Barry. I do have a general question.
Okay.
Does the city, I guess it's probably more for Wally, does the city have, we talked about, well, the city might partially pay for stuff. Do we have a fund that readily available money that we pay for, help pay for a traffic study or a intersection improvement?
So currently, we don't have any funds for that, but that's something that might be negotiated as part of a development agreement. So for instance, there may be an opportunity to create a TIF to help pay for those offsite improvements. So a lot of times you're going to see with our residential subdivisions, and even we have a commercial development, we're creating that TIF district to capture the taxes to help offset the cost for that offsite improvement as a direct result of the impact from that development having on it. So do we have a line item that's set aside to pay for traffic studies for that? No, that's a direct cost of the cost of development for that developer for that.
So then why did you say that you might help pay for a traffic study if we don't have money?
So what I was mentioning about that is traffic improvements, the site stuff that might be potentially through the TIF agreement, TIF development, which we've done recently.
So the traffic study is the developer's responsibility
Correct.
no matter
Yep.
what.
It is to a point. I mean, from the way I've understood traffic studies, the developer will hire their engineer, they'll do a traffic study, they'll submit it to the city. Depending on the complexity of that study, they may choose to hire their own consultant to review it outside of city staff. So the city does have cost to pay for a traffic study. It's just not necessarily the drafting of the initial study.
So it wouldn't deflect the cost for the developer.
But I guess right now, you know, I've always thought we have, you know, under your staff reports, you have impact on existing utilities on, you know, that's in there. So you do evaluate those. You do evaluate the adjacent roadways and can the roadways handle it and all that other good stuff. And we do have development agreements. So is it just, we've been lucky so far? Nobody's decided to put a development that's a mile outside or a mile away from an existing water main and said, well, city, you get to get water out here and I'm going to start building and you better have water here when I'm done.
I think most of the time when the developer is looking at the first question they ask is there reasonable services to be able to provide to the site.
Right.
So most of the time, the access for the water and utilities or sanitary is usually not the question. It's the traffic that's generated off it. And then when I say a traffic study, that's the discussion with the engineering department where it may not be a full-blown traffic study. The city has gotten involved with either site analysis, locating at locations.
Right.
It's that level of that detailed. So like we said, it's just in here we indicate a study to provide of the off-site impact of development. That could be ranged from a lot of things. And, we want to encourage development in our community. We don't want to be a detriment to a community, or we want to be a barrier. We want to see our community grow, residential, commercial, industrial, and we have a future land use map. We know we're growing. We want the development to happen. We want to make sure that we have the ability and the capacity to be able to handle that. And then if there are impacts for off-site improvements, that impact is that there's a share in the cost of that, of the development that's providing the impacts on it.
Yeah, I would agree. I just, the more I'm hearing this, the more I'm shocked that just right now, you don't have the authority to say, no, you can't do that because we can't support your utilities.
So throughout our comprehensive plan and our site development plan, we have
roadways or traffic.
We have multiple
in general
references that we can relate to in order to help for that denial. We don't have out anything that's very specific and has that very clear authority like this ordinance would provide us to us.
I will say, as somebody who's been on the other side of that traffic study, it's been very fair in terms of what is to be accomplished with it from the city's. As the developer, receiving the direction from the city has been favorable towards the developer. So I'll say that from my perspective.
I will agree with that.
And actually, you had the best question, which is, so what do you want? And my only, well, let me go back. Your comment is very valid that, we, as a city, we have to have the ability to handle situations such as the one I can think of 10 reasons why that project that's a mile out from the water line should not go forward, but I could also see why maybe ignorance or arrogance could allow something to get to a negative situation, right? Where our city doesn't have the ability to.
I mean, my understanding of the way the situation works now is the city can say, you know what? We don't have plans in the 5-year budget. We don't have plans in even the long range budget to extend utilities out that far. You want to develop that land, great. You're going to have to provide your own wells. You're going to have to provide your own septic systems. If you need to get roads in and out of here, go for it. That's the way I thought it happens now. because that's essentially how that water tower just on the west side of town was originally created. That was originally created for a development out there. And then it was tapped into and expanded and then on and on and on. So, I mean, I guess, I don't know. I just think the system's working. And I think this just might go a wee bit too far. I understand you need teeth, but I think we can find some room in the middle here. But
I guess from my perspective, so what would I ask for? I feel like in this, I would want to sit down over the next month and go through very specific circumstances and analyze them from that lens and just see how that situation would have played out. And I am coming from a place of ignorance, Wally, I'll tell you that, because I have not fully read the Unified Development Code as it relates to this section. So I apologize for that. I know you know it very well, and I am not getting my head wrapped around it. So that would be, how would we get from here to there? That would be my ask. And so to get from a tabling to a going forward, that is solely me. But there you go. That's my answer.
Would we be all right tabling it to the next meeting?
I mean, we asked a question earlier, the developer of a developer, is there an urgency here? I mean, if there is, we can definitely talk about it. I mean, is this something that needs to happen? Is there's something on the immediate horizon, or is this something just to solve a problem that's 6, 8 months, a year further out?
No, this proposed amendment is actually prompted by a very real situation. We have a development which the developer's own traffic study has indicated is going to require a multi-million-dollar traffic improvement. The developer says, I'm not going to pay for it, and you can't deny my site plan because I won't pay for it. That's a very real situation right now. And the developer's attorney says, you do not have the authority, city, to deny that site plan. And that's where we are right now. So it's either going to be, who knows where it's going to go from there. But it's a real situation.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm going to just say real quick that even hearing what we've heard from the city tonight, I am comfortable and support the idea of tabling this discussion for a short amount of time to review on our own. I am not a developer, so I am, if anything, more ignorant about the impacts of some of this than Matt and our other colleagues are. So I would be supportive of tabling this for 2 weeks or for a month.
I guess I do have another question for Barry now. Then, if we're considering tabling, would the example you just gave, would their interests be vested already, where the passage of this ordinance wouldn't do any good? Or?
No, we cannot apply this amendment to that project. It's too late.
That's right.
So, but going
it's
forward,
for future projects.
Yeah, we don't want to be in this position again.
Thank you.
Would a month give you enough time to?
I bet 10 minutes with Wally would give me enough time, but we don't have that, so.
So if I would make a motion to table it to next month, would that?
If you can speak in the mic, I think sometimes they.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
If I make a motion to table it till next month, and that would give Matt a chance to get more comfortable with the wording and stuff with you, and anybody else that has any questions and stuff, that we could bring it back and vote on it next month?
That's at your discretion for your decision. I do know when you do make a recommendation, there is still time between that recommendation and the city council for that public hearing. So it's just, there's 2 public hearings, 2 opportunities for that input, but it is up to you as a commission to decide if you want to table it. for further discussion. So,
All right, is this horse dead? All right.
Temporarily?
Temporarily. All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to table this until our next meeting.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. to
Zucchero?
table- Sorry, Jason, go ahead.
Zucchero?
Aye.
Christ?
Aye.
Aye.
Norton? Russell?
Aye.
Aye.
Mulligan?
Okay, I put everything away and we are actually not done yet. I'm sorry. Yes, do we have any items from the public this evening? Okay, seeing none. Any items from the commission?
I'm was surprised to see bifurcated and rational nexus in the same packet.
Awesome. We'll keep them coming.
we'll keep 'em.
Very good. All right. Any questions from, or comments from staff?
Sure. So I'm a walking advertisement. So just to remind everyone, April 24th, we have Iowa State Extension. We'll be giving a planning and zoning workshop. And we're going to be sending invitations. I think I've mentioned this about 20 times to you or whatever, but that will be before for the Zoning Advisory Commission, Zoning Board of Adjustment. Our city council members are all invited to that. It's a great workshop. I've attended it in the past. I think some of our commission members here have attended it. It just kind of gives you a nice overall look at planning and zoning, current legislation, current rules and regulations. Gets a lot into some of the questions and the process that we talk about. So,
It's the first I've heard of it, Wally. Okay. Any other items? Staff? No? Okay.
I move we adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.